Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Our second class back since the holidays ended. We're going to do something a little bit different to start off today's class. So we're going to play a quick game, a little experiment, if you'll indulge me. So you need your phone for this one. So if everybody has their phone out for just a minute and go to the stopwatch part of your phone. So if you go into like where your alarms are, you'll see there's a stopwatch over here. Everybody has that? Okay, good. So here's how we're going to play. It's a very simple game. You may have even played it before, but I think the results of how we do it will be interesting and hopefully relate to what we're talking about today. So no pressure, but if you do it well, it's okay. So when I say go, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the start button on your timer. You're going to close your eyes, and you're going to try when you can stop the timer as close to exactly 1 minute as you can. Okay? Without looking. Close your eyes. Do your best. Do your best if you can. Also, not to like count it out in your head. And definitely don't count it out loud. You can if you want to try to count it in your head, but the whole idea is to just get a feel for how long a minute is, okay? Don't count, just close your eyes and see how close you can stop the timer. When you're ready, open your eyes and stop the timer, but then don't say anything because we're gonna see how everybody else does as well when people open their eyes, okay? Does everybody kind of get what we're supposed to do? Okay. So again, when you're ready, when I say go, you're going to hit start on your stopwatch, close your eyes, and try to stop it as close to 1 minute as you can. When you're ready to stop it, open your eyes and stop it, and then you'll see how everyone else does. How we open their eyes, okay? Ready, get set, go. Okay, so it looks like everybody else has their eyes open. How many people came in under a minute? How many came in over a minute? Anybody get like in the like 55 or up, like between 55 and 56? Anybody beat that? Anybody beat that? Wow. Okay. So what do you think this game teaches us? Why do you think I want you to play it? Okay. So definitely, I think the anxiety, so to speak, of having to get it exactly and being nervous that you're going to go over kind of makes us hit it early. Statistics show that majority of people hit it early. Most people don't hit it late. Most people underestimate a minute versus over. So what else can that teach us? A, we have maybe not as much patience as we think. What else? We're not very good judges of time. And generally speaking, what do we think about time? We actually think we have less of it than we really do, right? People don't really understand how long a minute really is until you have to actually sit in a room quietly and just sit there for a minute. And this is probably just some of our anxiety and some of the fastness with which our lives move, that we just assume that minutes go quicker than they probably really do. So what I want to talk about today is the concept of time, a little bit of how we feel about time, our relationship with time, what do our rabbis say about time, and maybe share some strategies that other people in the room use to organize ourselves and to manage our time to try to be as successful. Because I think if I asked people, do you feel like you have enough time? I think everybody here would probably say, I never have enough time, right? I don't have enough time to take that cooking class I wanted. I don't have enough time to exercise. I don't have enough time to see my children. I don't have enough time. You're always hearing, can you do this? I don't have time for that, right? We're always using that type of lingo, huh? We're always rushing, we're always moving. But I also think, so we have this sense that we're a lot busier. We are very busy. I'm not going to say we're not busy. We're juggling families, careers, hobbies, picking up our kids, everything that goes into being a very busy mom who has a lot of stuff going on the side and balancing a lot of different pressures that we have as people. And so we just have this intuitive sense that we don't have enough time and that we can't do certain things that we really want to do because we're struggling to find that time. But I think when push comes to shove, if something is really important to us, we find time for it, right? So I had a conversation once with a woman who said that she never had time for anything. And then one time her hot water heater broke and she came home one day from work and there was just water all over the floor. It was a terrible mess and she had to kick it into gear. And it took her about 7 hours to finish fixing and repairing and cleaning and this and that. And somehow she still managed to get done just about everything else that she was supposed to get done in the day. Maybe she had to cut some corners and kind of figure it out. But when something is really, really important to us, we somehow find a way to put it in. And when something is kind of on the periphery or not that important to us, we typically will say, I don't have enough time for that. And sometimes what we mean when we say I don't have enough time for that is it's really just not that important for me to go ahead and put it in. Because if you think about it, I did this, you could do this calculation for yourself and kind of put it down. There's 168 hours in a week. 168 hours in a week. It's a lot of hours. You sleep 8 hours a day, that's 56 hours. That leaves 112 hours for the rest of the week. What can you get done in 112 hours? Sounds like very little? Really? It sounds like very little? 112 hours, right? I mean, I talk to a lot of people, it takes them an hour a day to make dinner, pick up the kids here and there. A lot of times when people start crunching the numbers about what they're doing and how long it takes or how long it should take and errands, and all of a sudden they sit there going like, there's like 60 hours in my week that are like not accounted for. If a person who works a 50-hour work week, which is considered way above average, you still have 62 hours of your week left. What are we filling that time with, right? So when you start crunching the numbers, things sometimes don't add up. And I think it comes out that we're actually frivolously wasting a lot of our time. And we're under the guise that we don't have enough of it. But in reality, we have more than we really need. We're just not using it the right way. We're not prioritizing and organizing our time in the way that we want. And then when something happens, we feel that pressure, that stress, and that tightness for us to find time for certain things. Like I said before, sometimes finding time is really just code for prioritizing something, making it important, because those things that are really important, we somehow manage. And so time might be a lot more flexible than we give it credit for. Now, I'll share with you a couple of statements from the rabbis about time and the way to relate to it. We'll see that the rabbis have, their language is a little bit different than what I'm sharing with you. So, for example, in Pirke Abot, this is what we're studying, in Pirke Avot, at the end of the second chapter, a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Tarfon gives the following parable. He says, Hayom katzar, the day is short, v'hamlacha merubah, and the labor is great. There's a lot that we need to get done. V'hapo'alim atzelim, and the workers are very lazy. V'hasachar harbeh, there's a lot of reward. U'bal habayit dochek, and the owner is knocking on the door. So what does that all mean? What's the parable that Rabbi Tarfon is using over here to talk about how we kind of live our lives? What's the mashal and the nimshal? Yeah.
I think death.
Death.
Knocking on the door is the end, is, I think, our end of days.
Okay.
And we're being lazy, the workers are being lazy, that's our time.
Who's that?
Us.
Us,
That's
okay.
our time to amass the reward that is a potential that we're not fulfilling.
Okay. And who's the Baal Habayit that's knocking?
I think that's Satan, whatever, what do you want to call?
God.
God, but,
Yeah.
Death, I use the word.
Okay, so time is ticking, the clock is moving, right? Time stops for nobody. And as a result, it's a resource that, by the way, you can think of time in a lot of different ways, but it's a gift that everybody gets, right? Everybody has the same, it's pretty equal, it evens the playing field, right? So it's not something, you can't buy more of it, you can't acquire it in any type of way. It's just there. Everybody has the same way that they have to manage and work through their time. It's a finite resource, it uses up. And so time is knocking on the door. We have a lot to do, little to accomplish. So there's a sense of urgency. You went with Hayom Katzar, the day is short, kind of referring to a person's whole life, right? On a larger scale. We can also narrow it down and kind of zone it in even to something a little bit smaller, like the day is short. Like literally, when you wake up in the morning, you have a lot to do. You got a list from, I don't know, page long, whatever it is in your notebook. How would you like to write it down? And I got a lot to do, and then there's a sense of urgency, right? So that's definitely what the Bitarfon is trying to instill in us over here. A sense of urgency to make usage of our time, to not let it go to waste, and to realize that people who use their time efficiently and wisely can really become successful, can impact their life. He says, Hasachar harbe. There's a lot of reward there that's waiting for us if we use our time productively and efficiently, which doesn't always mean we're using our time in the things that we naturally want to do or the things that we love to do, but sometimes doing the things that we sort of need to do, right? And there's reward that's there. So if you think about it in terms of learning Torah, right? A person has a certain amount of time in their life and they want to try and efficiently use it to study Torah, to pray, to do mitzvot, to get closer to Hashem. But then, of course, along the way, there's other responsibilities and things that we have to take care of that now cause us to have to balance and to put those things into perspective. And that's what crunches us to have to now prioritize. And I think that's the key word for today. What are my most important things? What are my secondary things, third things? And this way I can manage my time efficiently towards the things that I think are most important. Generally, those are the things that I think give me fulfillment, give me meaning, and give me purpose in life, right? Studies show that people who work or are workaholics, who work 18, 19, 20-hour work weeks, they're not very productive because they might be thinking that they're using their time quite efficiently, but they're not taking breaks, they're not resting and recovering, they're not relaxing, they're not revving it up. So sometimes we measure things in terms of quantity. Oh, I'm working a 20-hour work week or I'm working 18 hours a day, but how productive are those 18 hours themselves? Am I using those 18 hours that I'm working efficiently or not? You know, sometimes I'm up in my study at night, preparing a class, preparing something, and I'm preparing from like 11:30 to 1:30 in the morning, let's say. And I'll look back on that and say, like, those 2 hours, I maybe used about 15 to 20 minutes of that time efficiently. The rest of the time, I got up and went to the kitchen to get a drink. My phone buzzed and I checked something. I, got a phone call or whatever. And distractions are taking you totally away. And so you say, well, I stayed up for 2 hours last night working on that speech. Really, I worked on it for like 20 minutes. And then the rest of the time, some things were taking my attention because that time wasn't really efficient time. It wasn't workable time. It was too late. I was tired. My mind was wandering. And as a result, I probably would have been more effective to go to sleep at that point and put in a more productive work day the next day instead of staying up late. So sometimes we don't make those calculations. We're not doing that cost benefit and understanding how to efficiently go ahead and use our time. So I think Rabbi Tarfon over here is saying that, yes, time is short and you need to use it wisely. You need to have a sense of urgency. But at the same time, you need to be smart about what strategies you kind of use to be able to make most of a person's time. And sometimes they're not the conventional things that we typically like to think about. Before I move on to getting a few more ideas, the next Mishnah, Rabbi Tarfon continues, is a very important balance to this, because with all the sense of urgency, a person can become paralyzed. Have you ever felt that you have so much to do that you end up doing nothing as a result of it? You feel this way? Right? You sometimes freeze, right? Like a deer in the headlights. So I talked to, when I did this with high school students, they totally identified with this concept. They had 2 tests the next day, they had a homework to do, there was a basketball practice at night, and as a result, they stayed home and watched the TV on their phones. right? Right? That's what the teenager did. So like you're talking to them and you're like, but how did that make sense? And when they say it, they laugh at themselves almost because it makes no sense. But you had 4 things that you needed to do that were really important, and you ended up doing absolutely none of them and just wasted time. How does that make any sense? Why would a person do that? And I know they're teenagers, so they don't always make sense, but there's a thought process that's going on over there. What are they doing? Or if anybody's experienced this, like you have to cook Friday night dinner, you have to pick up your kid, you have to do that, and you just end up like sitting on the couch and doing nothing for 30 minutes. That doesn't happen to you. Okay. In panic mode. Freeze mode doesn't happen to you sometimes? Does anybody experience that freeze mode, or it's just me? Okay. Yeah. It's almost like if I can't get all of this done, I'm just not going to get any of it done. Or they're so overwhelmed, like you said, the shutdown mode, they're so overwhelmed by all of the stress that's going on that they just immediately turn to a distraction that will temporarily relieve them of that stress and at least get them out of that. What they obviously all come to realize is that it only increases the stress once that distraction goes away. And they realize the 2 hours that they were on their phone scrolling TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter now are 2 hours that they didn't use towards what they actually needed to get done. And those tasks aren't going away. They still need to apply to college. They still need to write their essay. They still need to study for that test. And now they lost that time and it only increases. So it becomes a vicious cycle for them. And that's because they're not managing time well. So I think what I'm trying to get at is we have a lot more time than we think. We feel though we don't, and we're busy because we don't manage time properly. We don't prioritize. We don't use the right strategies. And as a result, when students don't develop those skills, even as adults, we find that they don't have skills. So quick show of hands, how many people feel like they're always late to stuff? Nobody here. Wow. Huh? Yeah. Oh shit, right? Only shul. That's the only thing that people come lazy, right? Yeah. Okay. So some people are like chronic partiers, right? Other people are very, very punctual. They're on their way, right? Obviously, they're not here because forget about it. Kiki, you were brave enough to raise your hand, like. But it's because like you're showing up to someone else's house. Or like to an exercise class also, the same thing. There's like, I think this is, by the way, like something of a Syrian thing, because my wife has this a little bit, the phobia of showing up early to something. Anybody have that phobia? Like my wife will not show up early to a wedding. Like if I want to go to a wedding, like they told me, Right. Right, exactly. So showing up late to a meeting, not calling when people say that they're going to call, or at least not even, right. Exactly. So I try to tell this to students in high school because they get very annoyed at some of the rules that make people be on time, right? Like start time to school, start time to minyan, getting to class on time. There's a lot of emphasis during the high school years about getting to places where you're supposed to be on time. And there's heavy penalties when they don't. And it's really the same usual suspects that typically have the struggle. And what I always try to tell them is, okay, what I try to tell people is that punishing people for coming late doesn't make them on time, right? So like detentions for lateness don't work. It's proven that it doesn't work, right? I'm just saying, it's proven that it doesn't work, right? I tell that all the time, I'm just saying, but it doesn't, it's proven that it doesn't work because you're not helping the student to solve the problem of why they're late, right? You're just penalizing them to stay late. So students will make a cost-benefit analysis. They're saying to themselves, I can go to Rook in the morning and show up 10 minutes late to school. And that means I have to stay an hour late after school. I'll take that. I'm being honest with you. Students will say, I'll take that, fine. My 10 minutes showing, my 10 minutes of sleep, my 10-minute Rook run, I'll take an hour after school, no problem. Not a big deal for me. I don't have anything going on. They'll make that cost benefit. So you're not actually teaching them about anything that's helping them to solve their lateness issues. Why are they late? Are they disorganized? Are they not prioritizing their tasks properly? Are they not leaving in time? Are they not preparing for the night before? Things like that. The key is to give them skills. And by the way, these skills that they start in high school, they work up later on. So I had a conversation with a student who said, yeah, I don't need to study at home because I could study during breakfast and I could study during my first period class and I could review during lunch and I make it work, right? And it works. She has a system that it works. I said, it might work for you now, but it's not going to work throughout your life. Eventually, those tasks are going to get so difficult and you're not going to have the skill set to be able to manage that because you've created a system that's helped you survive high school, but life goes beyond high school. You're going to have to develop a skill set of developing time management skills that are going to help you when you have to balance a family and exercise. And that's going to be much more difficult because you're not going to be able to help your kid while you're exercising. It's just not going to work. You can't multitask like that. So this is hard for students, and young people, and they don't develop those skills. And then as adults, they find themselves kind of lost and really grasping at straws and they're not sure. So I think, Kiki, your issue is a little bit of a different one, right? Okay. So for you, that did work. Right. Right. So if you're being held to that standard and somebody needs to be there for you. Right. So it also depends on how the time is looked at in a flexible type of way and what setting you're in. Yeah. Okay. So that comes back to the idea, right? That comes back to the idea of things that you feel are a major priority, you make sure to be on time for. So people who are chronically late to things, it's not so, sometimes it has to do with them lacking skills. Sometimes it has to do with, as Barbara said, just not caring as much. The things that I don't find to be so caring, I don't show up on time all the time because, right. 100%, 100%. Correct. Yeah, it's something that's depending on you. If it's something that you feel you're obligated to do, if it's a real, like you said, your baby is, I'm not going to make them wait, but different situations and different settings make a difference.
In wherever I have to be at 11:54 or 11:56, I think I'm late.
Right.
I mean, my mind, like, that's my
So our upbringing definitely makes a difference. Our environment definitely makes a difference. Our own natural personality also sometimes make a difference. People just tend to be a little bit more casual about certain things versus others who tend to be very, very prompt. But as Barbara pointed out, you're going to have a very hard time. Someone who's very diligent about time is not going to be able to work very well with somebody who's like, you know, whatever and free flowing. It's going to make for a very difficult relationship. Yeah. What about this environment do you think does that for you?
I'm saying, even to go to Brooklyn and see a wedding or something, I give myself some of that, right? Always the person
It takes longer to get places.
Yeah.
So right. You have to plan, you have to be looking ahead, you have to be willing to pad your time. I think that comes back to our original experiment at the beginning of the class, which is sometimes people just don't know how to measure how long something takes. So sometimes I've struggled, like I'll tell myself it takes me 12 and a half minutes to get from my house to school. I've timed that out exactly, but I haven't always timed out the walk from the parking lot to the class, right? That still gives me some fits because depending on where I park in the parking lot, there could be a difference of about 45 seconds to a minute. And by the way, this makes a huge difference in high school, right? Someone talks to me on the way in, I bump into somebody. So I know exactly how long the car ride will take me, generally speaking, but I don't always prepare for how long that walk-in is going to go ahead and take, or if I get a phone call or something like that. So I've had to learn to adjust for that. So people who are mindful of time and how long things take and start measuring things out and plan ahead makes a very big difference. Yeah.
So I find that I try very hard to be on time or early, and then when I find that I'm going to be, we're keeping sitting in the car, I feel like this need to accomplish one more thing. Like, so even now, I always put things in ways. I know where I'm going. I want to see what time it tells me I'll get there.
Okay.
So like today, I had 6 extra minutes from where I was to get.
So you want to do something with that 6 minutes. I don't want to lose that 6 minutes. That's dangerous though.
2 minutes late. But, I came early today. I didn't go to the place. I want to do nothing later when I could have done both of this, but my nature is to fill in every empty gap, that I'm never wasting a minute. My father brought us up that everything was before Torah. You cannot waste a minute
Right.
ever. So I have to deprogram myself. It's okay to be 5 minutes early.
Right. But that's not a problem. That's not wasting time to be prepared for something mentally and physically.
I guess, but it's, I need to tell myself.
Do you think
that.
technology also has a role in that? Like, because technology seems to find its way to fill those gap periods, right? You lose sense of time for sure. Yeah.
There's no time.
Phones are like casinos. They're like casinos. There's no clocks around. There's no things around. There's a lot of bells and whistles, and you kind of get lost. Yeah. Students have told me many times that they have a name for it. They call it a YouTube vortex. Have you ever heard of such a thing? It's a real phenomenon. It's called the YouTube vortex. They watch one YouTube video and then suggests for you this, and they're on loop, and they have no idea how long they look at the clock. 3 hours went by. They felt like 10 minutes. They've lost their sense of time. Technology has that way of taking out how much time they measured. By the way, interesting that when I did this program with my seniors all went over the minute. They all went over. They all waited longer. Right, they all waited longer. So it's like it's an interesting phenomenon. Like for adults, we're maybe rushing a little, we want to click that button. The students are like, oh, that was a minute. Like I thought that was, they waited until like a minute 15. Some people still had their eyes closed. They had so everybody has like their different way of looking at it. So to that end, the Bitarfon tells us something very important about avoiding that time freeze, that paralysis that sometimes a feeling of a lack of time can create. He says, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It's not for you to finish all the labor. Velo ata ben chorin libatel mimena. But you're also not free to exempt yourself from it, right? So yeah, seminar song. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, seminar song, right? Huh? This is one of my favorite. Yes, it was me. Correct. Yes. I said it last week even. This is one of my most favorite Mishnayot, because I think it's a perfect Mishnah to really live by, right? It's telling you that in the end of the day, life is short and no human being will accomplish everything. There isn't enough time to do everything that you're going to set out to do. It doesn't mean you shouldn't set goals for yourself and try to take steps to accomplish them. We talked last week about the journey and the process being more important necessarily than the end result. But sometimes I hear my mom's voice when she says, just get started, right? I have like 9 things for homework and I'm just sitting there going, I want to watch TV. Like I can't do any of these 9 things. My mom would always say to me, just get started, just do something, just finish one thing, right? And once you get started and you build a little bit of that momentum, all of a sudden you're able to accomplish those tasks. There's a famous idea that in the military, they say the first thing you should do when you wake up is make your bed. When you feel that sense of accomplishment and confidence that you've made your bed, you've done something, now you're prepared to go ahead and tackle all of the different tasks that you have during the course of the day. So I asked the seniors a good question. I said, how do you prioritize your tasks? If you have 6 things to do, how do you decide what to do first? Huh? What does that mean, the easiest thing? Okay, so it could be something that you feel is okay, good. So sometimes one girl said, I do the quickest thing first, right? So if I have 3 hours of a English report to do and an hour of a Chumash test to study for, and I have a math sheet that takes me 10 minutes to do, she's going to do the math sheet first. Get the math sheet off, cross it off that list. I'm sure everybody here, everybody here makes lists. There's nothing more satisfying in life than doing this through something in your list. But adding things to the list is terrible. Oh, you add it to cross it off. Okay, good. All right, that's another level of, that's not, yeah. You figured something out, you add it to the list, and just so you can cross it off. Okay, very good. So, good. So it gives you something to say, I accomplished something, I did a task. It helps you to build that momentum. It makes it seem less overwhelming. Immediately, all of the students said, when I have 5 or 6 things, to talk about them in my head versus putting them down on paper, world of difference. When you list 5 things that you need to do, that could seem overwhelming. When you put down 5 things on a piece of paper, and this takes 3 minutes to do, this takes 6 minutes to do, that takes 4 minutes to do. Even if the last thing takes 2 hours to do, you can knock off 3 things in 20 minutes. You feel like a different person. Okay, I can get those things done. I can do the thing that's quick right away. And that's where the Hillel's words start to resonate. In lo achshav, ematai. If not now, then when? I can do this now. I can get it done. It's not too much of a task. Why not get it done? And when that happens, all of a sudden the person feels like they can accomplish even those bigger and more challenging and longer tasks that they have on their list to be able to do. So having a feeling of lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. I don't have to, my life is short and things are short, and there's sometimes it doesn't feel like there's enough hours in the day, but it's okay to sometimes say I didn't get to everything. I tried as much, I got through as much as I could, but I didn't get to everything. That sometimes, as long as it's not dinner for the kids, it is okay to go ahead and live with. That joke didn't really work so well, but as long, that's okay. But then you also have to say to yourself, Lo ata ben chorin li batel mimena. That's what happens in that moment of freeze when you have so many things to do, and you turn around and say, I can't do any of this, so I'm just not going to do anything. If I can't get it all done, then I may as well not do any of it. That's what Rabbi Tarfon is saying. I'm giving you a sense of urgency. There's a lot that you need to do in a short amount of time. And human life is finite and goes very, very quickly. But it's not necessarily that you have to finish everything. It's okay if you don't get everything done. Just get started. Just get into the mode. Do something. Involve yourself. And you will slowly start to see that you end up having more time than you actually thought. And you accomplish more of those things that you didn't think you would have enough time to be able to get to. So if you keep those types of things in mind, the idea of there is a sense of urgency. We have to feel that sense of urgency. If we're too relaxed, and that's what happens with teenagers, I'll get it done later. The procrastinator inside of us is that one that puts that sense of urgency at bay. That's the one that says it takes weeks to put together a college application, and the student's going to put it together 2 days before the college application is due. And that's what we're dealing with right now. I have 7 students who came to me in the last week. I need a college recommendation. College recommendation, we've been talking about this for months. I need the college recommendation, and when are you handing it in? October 29th, the deadline's due. Looking at watch 26th. What's going on? And now I have to drop everything. So the students gotta sometimes learn the hard way. Now, really, what I should do is I should have bailed them out, but we do. We do that. We try to work with the student to kind of work it out. But what is that? And it's the students who you see in their personality. They're super duper relaxed. They're super duper relaxed. They're relaxed. It's not a problem. No big deal. Everything's good. Super duper relaxed. So, they just don't have that sense of urgency. To a degree, a sense of urgency is something that you need in life. You need that to motivate you. You need that to push you. And we always try to put in our kids come on, let's get the ball rolling. There's got to be a sense of urgency. But too much of a sense of urgency can also paralyze the individual when you feel like there's so much that you have to do, and you have to get it done so quickly, and it had to be done yesterday, to the point where you say, I just give up. I just give up. And that's the batel mimena, yeah. He's saying that's why they're very relaxed. Right. It definitely exacerbated an already challenging problem for people of that age. Yeah. I sense that we don't think about that enough, but you're right, 100%, that we have that gift of time sort of, but there's times when I start to say, I can go for a week of lockdown. I'm good with that. You should just huh? Yeah, I could do a week of lockdown, just kind of disappear. Grace is getting nervous. Huh? Parents are involved, but I don't know. Yeah.
And I have one kid that I don't know how to parent. He's exactly what Rabbi Tawil was saying.
Super relaxed.
He has a thousand beautiful qualities, but you can't rush this child if the house is on fire. There's just nothing you can do, and I think sometimes, like, I'm learning the hard way that I just have to let him be.
Yeah.
I can't force him to get a college. I can't force him to study, and at the end of the day, he has to be responsible for his own consequences. And I'm sounding confident right now, but tomorrow I'll be in tears when he won't do something. It's just, if you have to spend. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Sometimes life has to teach you those skills. I think for all of us, we are looking back from an adult perspective and saying, I can't understand it, but we have to rewind into our teenage selves. There were tons of things that we didn't develop because life didn't teach it to you. There's just certain things that life is going to have to impact, and certain people will never develop that sense of urgency that other people develop, but some kind of an urgency will develop once life kicks in. And that's just the way sometimes it has to be, and you have to be able to compensate and balance with the other good qualities until that happens.
To me, I've now embraced it to think, you know what, this is a good thing for him. Like, everything is okay because it's okay for him. And what is important to him he does pay attention to and stuff. And the stuff that's not important to him, he gets it done, but it's not, to create the urgency is like to create anxiety.
I don't think you're trying to create urgency. I think you want to focus on priority. That's the takeaway from today.
Right.
Because everybody, no matter who it is, even the most relaxed student, boy, girl, whatever it is, adult, even when it's something that they really want, there's a sense of urgency, right? So it's not about creating this idea of be urgent. It's about creating what is this important to you? That's the conversation you want to have. If there's something that you want your son or daughter to be urgent about, and they're not getting that sense of urgency, it means it's not as important to them just yet. And that's the conversation you have to have. Not let's get the ball rolling. It's more about, it seems to me that this isn't as important as other things because I've seen you do X, Y, and Z really fast, whether it's your business or whether it's your basketball team or whether it's summer camp, right? Nobody's late to summer camp, right? And whether it's all of those things, and I've seen you do when you want something, go get it. So now I have to ask you why you don't want this. Why are we not going to get it? And that's the conversation you have to have. So then they'll open up to you. But so sometimes they don't know how to get started. Sometimes they don't have the skill set and you need a little bit of hand holding. So it depends on the circumstance. You have to really figure it out and get to the root of that problem. Sometimes they don't have the skills. Like sometimes I say my daughter just doesn't have the skills to get out of the house. She's just not fast with brushing her hair and putting on her clothes. And I want to get to shul on Shabbat morning and they have to come with me really, really early. And they're just painfully slow, right? They're girls, they take a tremendous amount of time, but also I need to get to shul because I need to give a class. They're not feeling that sense of urgency that I'm feeling. They're just like, why is Dad rushing me all the time? Like, why can't I get an extra 5 minutes to brush my hair and put on my shoes? Why do I have to move so fast? So that's where I had to start readjusting and waking them up a little bit earlier and just talking to them about why it's important to come. And if you can't come with me, then you might have to come later. Maybe they need to walk to shul on their own, whatever. I'm giving you my whole song and dance. It's not important, but the point is that we're all going through this. So there could be a lot of different reasons why they don't have that, sense of urgency. With the last couple of minutes that we just have left, maybe other people want to share some of their time management skills or things that they have, but yeah.
Like naturally, we walk up very young, very prioritized. And I have one child who just doesn't get it, and they're teenagers, but no matter how much to tell him and how much to do,
Yes.
It's not in him. And
Correct.
He doesn't think that making someone wait. I explained all that to him, but just they don't know how to schedule their time like some people are born to do. It's
Right.
really, really
Yes. Sometimes there is just a certain mechanism that people have that gives them that natural thing. Right. The question is though, if that would end up causing them a lot of difficulty in certain things that they need to do, how do we get them over that hump? They're never going to be perfect at it, but right. Yes. And that's fine. Just managing your expectations to where they're going to get to. At the same time, they also can't opt out of it totally, right? They also just, it can't always, it's at certain points in their life, it's not going to be okay to show up to a meeting a half hour late and just say, well, that's me, like it's not. So that's where the give and take has to happen. They're not going to be perfect. We'll manage our expectations, try to use some of their other qualities to help them. But there has to be that, definitely has to have that kind of dialogue. There's an interesting study that's done about when people have to answer a lot of emails, right? If let's say a person has a lot of emails, you wake up, there's 20, 25 emails in your inbox. How should you go about answering those emails? Huh? Delete half of them right away. Okay. Huh? Okay, so just go in order. Yeah. How does that happen? What's the trick does your husband have? That's a wild trick. I don't know. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, but if I have 4 different Torah, they're not getting done on their own. Like at some point, someone's got to write it. Yeah, it's a different job. So sometimes you can take, if it's a problem that you don't have to insert yourself into, you can be strategic about letting it kind of just observing until you really need to get involved. That's a whole nother strategy. But originally, people always believed that you had to organize things in terms of what's most important. And actually, sometimes people spend so much time organizing what's important that that's actually longer than just getting the things done in order of how they come to you, right? So like answering emails, they used to prioritize, people would look at their emails, okay, which email is the most important? Well, this is somewhat important, that's not as important. Well, this is really important. Let me put that at 1, this is at 2. And you'll spend 20 minutes just going through what's the most important email when it would have been just quicker just to go, no, delete, no, this is no good, answer that, yes, no, blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes there's an idea to prioritize your tasks based on what's most important. Sometimes you just want to say, I have this thing that I need to do, let me just get it done and let me move on from it. Multitasking, we've already established, doesn't work. Doing things one step at a time, one action at a time, and knocking them out is faster. It's the long route that's the short route. Instead of being the short route, that's the long route. And I think you know what I mean by that, right? So I think that's another important task. You like multitasking? It gives us. Yeah. So sometimes we have to. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Right. Multitasking, though, So sometimes you have to multitask. There's no choice. But multitasking also gives us a full sense that we're accomplishing more at one time than we are. And if you actually look back at it, you probably would have been better to say, hi, I'm putting the rice up. Give me 10 minutes. I'll call you back. Put the rice up and then get back to that phone call. It'll actually be much shorter for you because you'll be putting all of your energy into making the rice. So you'll make the rice much quicker instead of what usually happens. My wife's on the phone. She added oil and she's like, how much oil did I add to this now? I restart. Did I even add the oil? Dump it, start again, right? And so if sometimes you focus on just one thing, because that's how the human mind works, and then wait to do the second thing, if you can, again, sometimes you can't, you'll actually do each task in a better way, more qualitatively, and it'll actually go quicker. Everybody multitasks. I multitask also. Yeah. So there's no question that life puts a lot of pressure on us and we sometimes can't go away from it. But reflect sometimes and say, sometimes we get so used to multitasking, we multitask when we don't need to, when we shouldn't be, right? And then as a result, we don't live in the moment. As a result, we do things poorly, and it actually takes us a lot longer than we did. So it's something to be mindful of. It's not going to fix everything in one shot, but it's something to be mindful of. I think you'll see your time actually coming back to you. And I think if there's, again, one takeaway from today, it's do something you love and you'll find time for it. Do something you have to do and you're going to find time. You're going to find ways to push that off. So prioritizing and doing things that you want to do is always going to find time to be able to do that. And that's, I think, we're going to find a lot of productivity and a lot of meaning. And that's, I think, what the Tarfon and Hillel we're driving at is make Torah and mitzvot and kindness and things a priority. you'll find a lot of time for it, and then have that sense of urgency to get as much done, and you'll appreciate when you reflect on it, how much you were able to accomplish, hopefully.